Hey guys, Zen here, and Rainbow Six Siege has been down a long road, and surprisingly, if everything goes accordingly, then there's only 2.5 years left of the full 10-year plan, and there are now over 60 operators in a game that had a goal to cross a 100 operator threshold. These are big, ambitious targets to hit, and with so many options for operators and gadgets in the game, you might think that we're getting closer to the end, and the ideas are running dry. But this dev team and new game director say that as long as the players want new characters, they'll keep delivering them. So it's possible we see Operator 101 and a plan to extend Rainbow Six Siege beyond 10 years. In this video, we're going to speak about Sense, this operator, and this, the new POF9 assault rifle burden to this operator, because a lot of players have been comparing it to dog water. Yeah, also, all things point to Rainbow going back to back and releasing another attacker next season, and the rumor that's made its way everywhere online describes an explosive that leaves behind a cloud that spots an enemy that walks through it. A cheeky new intel gadget, it would seem. And guys, you're watching this video because it was created for you, but what if it's your turn to show the world your gaming finesse? Guys, to get started, download Outplayed, today's sponsor, and the perfect video recorder and editor for gamers. People want to see your best, or well, sometimes your worst gaming moments, and with Outplayed, you can choose to capture full games or only the most important highlights, like every kill or each of your smooth brain deaths, and even super specific stuff to Siege, like when the diffuser is planted or when you're knocked down. Anything you select comes up easily in the timeline, and you can trim and cut your perfect sequence of events for our viewing pleasure. Once you're satisfied with the project, you can share it out on apps like Discord or even YouTube and enjoy it with a friend or showcase it to an audience. The best part is that it's one app that checks all the boxes of recording, editing, and sharing out your stuff, and even better, it's 100% free. Now, of course, Rainbow Six Siege is just one of the many supported games, and the list is constantly growing. And so guys, click my link at the top of the description and go download Outplayed today and save your best moments. Now then, Sense, the latest attacker in Siege, hasn't been ultra popular in the community, and some people say that this operator is just not good. So let's look at the negatives. For one, Sense is a 1-speed. Now, I'll agree, I think Sense being a 1-speed limits mobility and doesn't synergize well with the gadget. Another downside is the gadget itself being so inconsistent that it makes it difficult to predict its full effect and where it'll end up. But above all, the community has been loud and clear that Sense suffers from having a terrible primary weapon with the POF9. Post after post describing this weapon as, well, trash. And I won't be as harsh, but for an operator with other shortcomings, it could use a buff. For me, it's the recoil pattern. Like, the gun just kicks up and to the side, so it never feels super responsive. My biggest tip here is to lower the zoom of the scope you're using. I went from the 2.5 ACOG down to the 1.5, and even sometimes as low as a holo, because it helps keep the sight picture manageable. Otherwise, the recoil is off with the weapon, and I agree, buff it. Now, the POF9 also has very low damage for an attack, and so without headshots, there will be times where you're straight up outgunned by defender SMGs. Obviously, the balance is that it has an incredibly large magazine capacity, so you can keep firing and pre-firing longer. But with everything else, it's a weapon I'm just not huge on. Smoke and cutting off sightlines with gadgets like this are something Ubisoft weighs heavily. And so with operators like Glaz, Warden, and now Sense, they really hammer on the drawbacks so that these operators, I guess, don't break the game. I don't know, I agree with some of the criticism, and ultimately, I think Sense could use an upgrade, and at the very least, a closer look at the POF9, because there is the potential this operator makes a huge impact. Now, next up, for Season 3, there's a leak that states the next operator will bring a gadget that, once deployed, goes invisible and waits for an enemy to engage it. Once they do, it explodes into a cloud of sensors that detects anyone who walks through it. From what we hear, the name for this operator is Grim, but it should be noted that this could always be a code name or something they use internally. Now, I'll say that for me, this sounds like an attacker, because currently defense has tons of options for this kind of intel, and if I were to compare this utility to anyone, it'd be the attacking version of Alibi. Actually, over the last few years, Alibi has only really gotten more popular as people have realized how useful her gadget is, especially at pinging the enemy's location. On attack, there are a few examples of this, like Lion and Jackal, that ping for intel, but this would be the first and only completely invisible attacker gadget with this utility. Now, it's been revealed that this operator is from Singapore, and because of how this sounds and the fact that we got 2 defenders in a row with Thorn and then Azami, there's a good chance this operator is an attacker following our last attacker, Sense. And so season 3 is projected to be a pretty big season because what's already been confirmed is the full reworked ranked playlist, the most played and important playlist for Rainbow Six Siege. Now, for rank 2.0, there's 3 major changes. The first is that the gaps between ranks will be more consistent. As it is now, as you progress, some ranks take more MMR than others, and it can be tricky to know how much is left before you rank up. With rank 2.0, every rank will be exactly 100 MMR in difference. And so Silver 2 to Silver 1 is 100 MMR, and from Diamond 3 to Diamond 2 is also 100 MMR. The next change is ranked will be more rewarding. So just like each tier in the Battle Pass has a reward, so too will ranks. Whether it's an alpha pack, a card background, or a weapon skin, you'll get something for ranking up. And then the tried and true system of getting your highest achieved rank charm at the beginning of the next season will now hand over every charm for the ranks you progress through. So if you reach gold, you'll get the copper, bronze, and silver rank charms as well. And the last big change here is one that I'm personally very excited for. They're totally reintroducing map bans. Now guys, we have to be totally honest here. Map bans were always a good idea in theory. Ban a map and gain some kind of competitive advantage for your squad. But now that it's here, it's become a major thorn in the side. On any random day, your ranked session probably looks a little like this. Oregon, Clubhouse, Coastline, Cafe, Oregon, Coastline, Cafe, Oregon, Bank, Oregon, Theme Park, Clubhouse, Oregon. Like, yeah, it's just become so limiting, and you see the same 3 to 5 maps in a pool that consists of over 10. Now that people have spent thousands of hours with the game, they've mastered the maps that give them the best chances at winning. So a map like, well, Oregon, that's been here since day 1 and got a rework that just made it better, people gravitate towards it because they feel the most confident here, and so usually if it's an option, you're going to play it. I love Oregon and Clubhouse as much as the next guy, and sometimes I dread playing Outback in Favela, but it's like carrying a backpack full of bricks. Like, it just weighs down the whole experience to only play on a few maps. And so the devs have said that very soon map bans will see a big change and hopefully open things up. My suggestion is, instead of giving more options, limit it to 2. That way, if the 2 teams agree to ban the same map, they play the other one. Or if they ban each map, a random map from the rest of the pool is picked. Most people universally agree on map selection, and most teams will ban Favela over pretty much anything else anyway. And so I think less is more here. Now guys, 100 operators. It may seem as a surprise, but 100 operators was never really the promise of the game. The devs have always looked at it like a goal of what if we could really reach that many unique playable characters in our shooter. It's honestly never been done before in an FPS like this. And out of all the mainstream shooters, there isn't another one out there really even keeping pace. One of the designers on Apex Legends said that they're looking at slowing down the release of future Legends because of saturation, and that's with a game that doesn't even have a third of the roster that Rainbow Six Siege does. But even with over 60 unique operators, the team isn't slowing down at all, and we can all expect more and more operators to make their way to the different squads in the game. The director of Rainbow Six Siege spoke to GameSpot and said, "We haven't even scratched the tip of the iceberg. The team has so many ideas to release more characters that we become really good at balancing this ecosystem of gameplay and gadgetry, so that no matter which way you slice it, whoever you're playing as in a 5-person team can be really important while always having a counter." Now, you'd have to enlighten us with how long you've been playing, but if you were here back in year 2 and 3, then you remember the god tier, almost broken meta of Ella and Lion. Ella has been toned down significantly over the years, but in her launch state, she had more Gersmont mines, they still had the full concussive effect that also affected movements, and her Scorpion was bar none the best defender weapon in Siege, if not the best weapon in the entire game. The devs actually stated that her design was to be able to kill multiple attackers while on a roam, and yes, she did exactly that for nearly a year until she was initially nerfed. But absolutely nothing compared to year 3 Lion. In his first ever season of Pro League, he had a 100% pick rate. To my knowledge, that's the only time an operator was in every single game in the Pro League without missing a single round, and it was because he was released with full-on wall hacks. Both of these operators created crater-sized gaps in the meta, and they taught this entire community a lesson, and that was to never release operators that strong again. And yeah, I'll say that some people see that as the golden years of Siege, and even I had a good time with it. But in comparison to the balance of today's meta, these two changed the game forever. But the director is almost promising that ops like that will never take over the game again because they've gotten really good at balancing all of them. Now, as for how many operators are left before the pool is dried up, they say, I don't think we're slowing down. We haven't hit a roadblock, and like I said, the ideas are still coming. But it's really up to what the community wants. Do they want to see more characters in the game, or do they want something else? We'll always tailor what we deliver every single season to what we see our player base asking of us. And that's where I'll hand it off to you guys. Yes, we have seen them go from 2 ops per season to just 1, and that's obviously a big chunk of new content no longer there. But it's also why we see extremely innovative ops like Azami who changed the game, and why we don't see year 2 Ellas and year 3 Lions anymore. So for you, do you want more operators and more gadgets added to Siege, or as the director says, something else? For me, even if it is a pipe dream, I want Siege to release its 100th operator, and with the current structure of the roadmap, there just isn't enough time to do that without ramping up the production. There's only 2.5 years left of this game's public plan of a 10-year title, and once it's reached, if there's still ideas left on the table, they'll showcase year 11, or pass the torch to the sequel of Rainbow Six Siege and carry on. And so Ubisoft announced the Berlin Major, taking place August 15th through the 21st. And this is both the next big landmark for the Pro League circuit, as well as the place where they'll reveal Year 7 Season 3. There is still time, but these seasons are bleeding by fast. And so if you're already looking for new information on future content, this is where you'll want your eyes to be. And in this video, you'll see Rook's new rework in action. He's literally handing out revives for the entire team. It's his biggest update to date. And also, the dominant LMGs are getting a nerf. Guys, click on this video to watch it for yourself. Hey, I'm out.